Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new I Don't Work Here Lady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, Lady Talks to the Manager About My Service Then Goes to Where I Actually Work and Finds My Manager. This happened years ago. I'm at Walmart and a lady asks for help with a heavy item. I talked to her for a while then continued to do my shopping. I went through checkout and the lady was talking to the manager by the registers. She pointed at me and the manager smiled. I walked up to them as the manager explained that he works at Wendy's. The lady was slightly embarrassed but we walked out together. I loaded the stuff into the back seat and talked to her husband that was waiting for her. She kept saying, "You know, just like my great-grandmother." The next day my manager asked if I was the one that helped the lady at Walmart. There are a few of us with the same name. So I do a little nice thing and this lady goes out of her way to tell my manager about it and I remember it for the rest of my life. The next story is titled, Lady Shouts at My Dad for Not Taking Her to Her House. I have only heard this from my dad and so I don't know everything that happened and my dad has anger problems so I believe he handled the situation as well as possible. My dad was walking out of his apartment to go to the store and on his way to his car he sees a woman crying so he goes and asks her what's wrong. Dad equals D crazy woman equals CW. D are you okay, what's up? CW, still bawling her eyes out, I can't get a taxi to take me home. D well I'm not doing anything so I could take you. CW okay then. So they begin driving and CW is telling my dad the directions and they keep coming to dead ends and my dad is beginning to get angry. Down some random street and she screams. CW stop the car. D stops the car in a panicked state, what's up? CW are you taking me home or what? D well you won't give me the right directions. CW huffing, well you're a taxi you should know where I live. D what are you talking about, I'm not a ducking taxi. I was helping a crying woman. You then have taken me down ducking road so many times. Yelled at me to stop in the middle of the ducking road which is so dangerous and you don't know where you live. GTFO of my car. CW well aren't you going to take me home? D no ducking chance, get out my car before I call the police. She leaves and my dad drives off. My dad isn't rich and can barely afford his car, he lives with my aunt, so she wasted his gas so he was getting angry at that as well. I don't blame him for the way he acted as she was a complete idiot. The next story is titled, I am 3 months too young to legally work and I am about 50 years too young to work at the post office. I had to return an overpriced textbook and because my mailbox is too small to ship it out, I had to go to the local post office. I am lucky that I somewhat know how to send label and send physical mail, but I'm nowhere near good. I was in the middle of sending the package off when a woman asked me how to do something with the mail. I responded, I don't know how that works. I can't help you. She got irrationally mad over the fact that a teenager didn't really know how to mail really specific things. I was cool with it, it happens with old people. They enjoy ranting about the youths these days. Then she said to her friend, also old, I can't believe they hired people this unqualified to work here, and she started saying some hateful things about the USPS. It did get political and I started to politely defend the postal service. I mean, she was literally trashing the postal service while in the post office. She walked off to talk to the clerk about her employees talking back and the clerk told her I don't work there and that was that. It was so bizarre because I wasn't dressed like an employee or anything. I am currently wondering if she just wanted to pick a fight and trash the USPS at the same time. Made no sense at all. The next story is titled, He's Not a Doctor. Yes he is, I saw him on TV. So I've had a friend since college who's a great guy, I love him to pieces, but I've occasionally considered ending the friendship because his wife is so jarringly dumb. For the life of me I do not know what he gets from her. Okay, I do, she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in real life. But even still, I don't know how he does it. She's sweet, she means well, but there are sandwiches more intellectually stimulating. A while back I had a friend visiting Camden, and she was dropping her kids by to hang out with mine. I invited her to stay for a bite to eat because yes she's exquisitely dumb, but she's perfectly friendly. Camden's been trying to break into acting and he recently had a bit part on a TV medical drama. So I brought it up, saying, Camden just recently had a small role as a doctor on this show. She went, "Ah, that's so exciting. Congratulations. That must not be easy, to get a job there. So, what kind of doctor are you?" And he explained, "Oh, it was a very minor role, I didn't get a specialty or anything, I didn't even get a name." And she laughed and went, "Well, we all feel that way when we first start, regardless of what job. Just keep working hard, and you'll get all that stuff over time. But don't sell yourself short. It's not easy to be a doctor." And he took the compliment and went into how he went about playing the role, the body language he tried to adopt for the intensive care unit, that sort of stuff. Then she cut him off and went, "Actually, you know what, if you wouldn't mind, my son has actually had this oblong cyst developing on the small of his back for a couple weeks now. I'd really appreciate if you could take a look." So we both laughed, thinking she was joking, and I was impressed with her uncharacteristically high-level joke. But then she actually started to call her son over. It's just like her to start a funny joke and then take it way too far. Camden, confused and weirded out by the whole thing, started saying, "Oh, no, hey, they didn't teach us any medical stuff for the part. I can't, help you with this." I jumped in and changed the subject, but she left shortly after. I'd long since given up on trying to explain to her why some jokes are funny and others are not, so I thought I'd let it be, even though she seemed kind of miffed when she left. Later she came back to pick her kids up, and by then Camden had gone home. As she was leaving she remarked, "You know, it was very rude of your friend not to at least look at my son's cyst. It would have taken him, 10 seconds. I hate how doctors think they're above helping anyone unless they're getting a check. Didn't they take an oath to always help anyone who needs medical advice or something?" So, as I processed the pure bitterness in her voice, I realized she genuinely and truly thought Camden was a medical doctor. So, convinced I must be misunderstanding her, I further reiterated, No, he's an actor. He played a doctor on that show. You've seen the show. It's not a small production, it's like Grey's Anatomy or House, everyone knows of it." And, even angrier now, she said, "Of course I have, I know all about it. It's one of the best hospitals in the country, why do you think they put it on TV? Being in the spotlight like that, you'd think he'd try and be a little more professional with people. That's all I'm saying." The surreal mix of entitlement and delusion in her statement left me dumbstruck, and I decided I must be misinterpreting this somehow, because there was no way any grown adult who votes, drives, works, and has kids of her own is that stupid, not even her, so I just let her leave rather than risk offending her or embarrassing myself. As soon as she was gone I called my friend, her husband, to try and catch him before she was home. I relayed the whole series of events to him, and his response, "Oh that. Yeah, it's a problem. But it's not entirely her fault. Oftentimes those shows use stories ripped from the headlines of the actual news, you know? So you can see why she gets mixed up sometimes." She bumped into Camden at my anniversary party not too long later and asked him, with genuine concern, if a character on the show who'd been in an accident, again, on the show, was recovering well. He tried telling her in plainer terms, "I don't work there. I'm not a doctor. I just played one that one time." And she said she was so sorry to hear he'd been let go, and where was he working now? So, if you wonder how our country ended up where we are, know that she has a bachelor's degree from an accredited college and holds a job with several subordinates and partial responsibility over our city's water supply. So, advocate for education reform whenever you can, and enjoy these twilight years of the great American experiment. The next story is titled, "I Work Here, but Not in the Way You're Thinking." I'm a medical secretary for specialist surgeons, and in one of our locations we have a small display with old-school surgical equipment and some of the tools we use today, including some hardware. I had a patient walk into the clinic. This was a new patient who had not been seen by our surgeons before. He started looking at the display while waiting for their appointment. He calls me over and asks, "Is this what I will be having done? Is this what hardware will be used?" He asks as he points to a random piece of hardware and equipment. I say, "I'm not sure, I'm only a secretary, not a surgeon, so I wouldn't be able to tell you." He then says, "Well, why not? Shouldn't you know what procedures doctor does?" Me, I do know what procedures are done and I know what types of hardwares I need to order for the procedure, but I do not know how to do the procedure. What hardware is used exactly for what? That is a question for doctor. I say this in my best customer service voice. He then proceeds to grumble and then actually call up a friend to then idiot about me in the waiting room. This same friend had been a patient of ours as well. In the end, the patient didn't even end up having any surgery. The next story is titled, Did You Look Before You Spoke? I went to a big office supply store with a red logo to scan a few documents. I'm out of town, but these needed to be sent today. An older woman approached me with a cart opposite the machine and declared that she needed help with a box of paper that was too heavy for her to lift. A barrage of smart-ass replies went through my head, but I felt bad and simply said, I don't work here. She only said, oops, and riddled off to find someone to help her. I am wearing a navy blue graphic tee with a bright pink purse crossbody and sunglasses on my head. I sassed her the whole way home. The next story is titled, Oh, I thought you worked here, my mum. So, I'm seeing a lot of depressing stories of Karens yelling at people because they think they are high and mighty, so I thought I would share a story on the funnier side. It's very short, but it gave me a good laugh. So we were in a shop called Redacted, just getting some groceries, when my mum, for short, wants to know if some chicken burgers she found could be frozen. So she went up to this guy, we'll call him. Now, just so nobody thinks my mum is an absolute knob for mistaking someone for an employee, this man was wearing full black clothes with a name tag and a box in his left hand by the shelves putting something back. So goes up to him and this is the full convo. Excuse me, do you know if these chicken burgers are freezable? G responds with, sorry, got no clue. I don't work here, sorry. With a laugh, oh sorry, I thought you worked here because, you had the name plaque and holding a box next to the shelves, I thought you worked here. G laughing as well, it's fine, haven't long gotten off work, anyway gotta go, stay safe. And he leaves like that. I thought this sub needs a wholesome story every once in a while, so just to take your mind off of all the negative posts, have this one. Stay safe all. The next story is titled, She Remembered Me from When I Used to Work There. First, some boring background. Before COVID, I worked for a chain of music stores in the US that specializes in music lessons and instrument sales, rentals. I started at the beginning of 2018, and by the middle of 2019 I was a manager of a store located outside a major US metro area. I stepped down as manager in early December of 2019 because I realized I didn't want to stay in retail forever, and would eventually be going back to school for my master's. So when COVID hit and we shut down, I wasn't the one who had to keep an eye on the store during the quarantine. And as we opened up, because I live a good 45 minutes away from the store, I wasn't called back in as part of the skeleton crew that was the reopening team. And now, with me going to school in a week, getting paid to teach while I get my master's degree, I decided to visit my pals at the store and drop off my set of keys, which I was apparently supposed to do at the start of the quarantine, whoops. And what do I find except an empty, locked store that was supposed to open an hour ago? While I was walking back to my car, I had stopped by the bank at the shopping center to run an errand. I see a lady in the parking lot talking about her clarinet, and I think, oh, I'll warn her that the store isn't open, but she sees me, and recognizes me from when I was manager. She said, I was waiting for 10 minutes but you guys weren't open. What's the deal? That's when I got to say those wonderful words, oh, I don't work there, I have no idea why they're closed, and walk right back to my car. When I got back in my car I called another store in the area to see if they were all closed, and the manager there told me that it was just my store, because they had staffing issues or something. So I really don't know why I wasn't called back to work if things were this bad. I was a good enough employee to be made manager, but it feels good, if bittersweet, to leave retail behind for now and not have to answer to the Karens of the world. The next story is titled, When One Assumes. They all do. This happened a few years ago, and honestly, similar events happen a lot because I worked in dark clothes and had keys hanging from my belt all the time. I was a laborer at the time and my uniform was generic. So, I knew this was going to happen occasionally. Besides, when going home from a shift, I do not care to change then go back out for what I want. I'm more pragmatic and prefer one trip. Anyways, after a shift ends for work, I end up stopping on the way home about 2 p.m. at a local location for a big chain general store. I'm the only one in the parking lot. Honestly, this isn't a big deal. The employees park elsewhere and it's usually busy after 3 or so. Therefore, I don't think much of it. I go to grab at the door and open. Ha! Big surprise. It's locked. At 2 p.m.? Weird. It takes me all of 10 seconds to look through the window, give the hour's signage a second look, then shrug as there's nothing I can do. Unfortunately, my timing was apparently quite strange. Like I mentioned, I'm still dressed for work in dark clothes and keys from my belt. For my laborer job I wore cargo pants and a polo shirt. So, 3 vehicles showed up in the 30 seconds or so it took for me to walk up, fiddle with the door, realize waiting or getting frustrated won't make the doors magically unlock, then walk away. The next guy tries the door and seems far more aghast and surprised than I was. Turning back to me, he starts shouting and stomping my direction. He begins relaying that the doors are locked, but the tidbit about me having locked them in his face came up too. 2 other people quickly checked the doors then turned for me too. I'm calmly walking back to my vehicle, already mentally assessing 3 different locations I could easily get my $20 worth of stuff I wanted. I did look back to see what they were doing. And lo and behold, 2 angry middle-aged men and a young woman are making a straight shot to me. Their mumbles, grumbles, and shouts were hard to differentiate, but it was mostly stuff like, "How dare you lock a store in the middle of the day? Open those doors right now and do your job. I need my cigarettes." That was the young woman. "Everybody, I'll get you fired for this." I was almost pinned to my vehicle at this point, ready to defend myself because they were definitely invading personal space with rancid breath alone. I try to get my voice across, but they can't hear past their own complaints and supposed rants of justice. This probably progresses for about a minute or so before I've had enough and shout, "I do not work here." Thankfully, I had enough volume to get them to hear me, and I see the recognition in each of their eyes as they all realize my outfit clearly had labels from a business that wasn't even close to being that store. Silence. Not another word. No apologies. Nothing. They all sheepishly and quietly shuffled away to their respective vehicles and leave. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Lol. Found out later on another visit that an employee was left to attend the store alone that day, had enough, and decided to quit and walk out. He had the sensibility and responsibility to lock the store, mailing the keys to management. Honestly, I understand that. It's not a big store, but it certainly requires at least 3 people to keep it running. The next story is titled, "There Was a Fire." No, you can't have a cheeseburger. I am a fire investigator for insurance companies. A few days ago I was at a fire at a super common fast food restaurant helping another investigator process the scene and dig. All the fun parts of my job without any of the responsibility or report writing. It was so cold if you farted too wet your ass hair would freeze. So I was in black coveralls and my black Carhartt with a baseball hat and a regular N95 mask because fires and fast food restaurants are gross, you know? I looked in no way like a restaurant employee. Even with the black clothes you could tell I was covered in soot and debris, and what restaurant employee wears an N95 that's been stained black? I was standing outside in the parking lot with another investigator that was there and we were chatting, taking a break from being in the grossness from inside. The parking lot has been filled with debris. On one end of the parking lot there's a 9-foot-tall pile of random burnt crap. On the other end of the parking lot in front of the drive-thru are all the roof ventilation systems that are half burnt and melted in a big pile along with a whole assortment of burnt crap. There's caution tape everywhere. There is fire debris haphazardly strewn throughout the area. There's a very visible hole burnt in the top of this building. There's a goddamn fire engine parked at one entrance of the parking lot with their lights on blocking the entrance. There was no way to misunderstand what had happened at this building. A man in an old van drives by with his window down slowly staring at us. He has this inquisitive look on his face. He drives past the first entrance, then attempts to turn into the entrance blocked by the fire engine. He backs out, turns around, then turns back into the other entrance, headed right for us. I say us, the other investigator wisely caught on to what was about to happen and whispered good luck, and hauled ass back inside, leaving me alone with van guy. Ducker. Anyway, van guy drives around the big ass pile of ash and stops in front of me. He says, "Hey, what happened here?" I replied for what feels like the millionth time in my career, "There was a fire." He says, "Oh, what started it?" And for the millionth time I replied, "That's what we're here to find out." He says, "Oh okay. Well, can I have a cheeseburger and a medium fry?" Trying very hard to not say what I truly wanted to say, which was some variation of, "Idiot, do I look like a fast food worker?" I told him that no, there was a fire, you can't have a cheeseburger. He then proceeded to ask, "Well, can I have a large Coke then?" Again, no, there was a fire, you can't have a ducking Coke. You know how you can see when someone has a moment where they have a moment and it finally clicks? This guy had that. He looks at me and asks very intently if I work there. I say no, I'm here investigating the fire. He then asks, and I'll never forget it, "So they're closed." But why? Feeling like I've met the universe's densest star, I replied, "Because there was a fire." He finally just says, "Oh okay. Well bye." And just drives away and out of my life. I'm still not sure he truly understood why he couldn't have his food. I walk back inside and the a-hole who had left me there to deal with Jacques Clouseau himself is standing there and just asks how it went. Because I work with a-holes. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.